Good day, everyone. You are welcome to another episode of our economics class. So for today's class, we'll be looking at market structure. Market structure. So under market structure, we need to understand how a market operates. Yeah, we need to understand how a market operates. When you look at market structure, this structure here, it talks about those conditions that binds the activities of the economic participants in a market. So there are those conditions that guides those operation of those people who are thus the buyers, the sellers, or the producers and the consumers in a market environment. First of all, what is a market? A market is a point of contact. A market may be defined as a point of contact. Are you getting it? We can also say a market is an arrangement of what? Buyers and sellers. A market is a point of contact between what? Buyers and sellers. Or a market is an arrangement of what? Buyers and sellers. We can say a market is a platform that brings together two parties, the buyers and the what? And the sellers. To do what? To exchange goods and what? Services. So we say a market is a point of contact, a market is an arrangement, a market is a platform. Now, a market is never a what? A place, because sometimes we can commit this error by defining market as a place. Market is not a place. Market is a point of contact, because when you say market is a place, you have limited the scope of a market. So it's not necessarily a place, you understand, a particular place where people buy and sell. No, because when I sell goods online, it's a market. For example, there is this popular online outlet called Temu. This is a market. So we buy and what? And sell. We have the Amazon. It's a market. Buy and sell. So it's not necessarily what? A place. So a market is a point of contact where buyers and sellers what? Meet to exchange goods and services at an agreed what? Price. At an agreed price. So price is very, very what? Important. And there is what we call current market price, because price always change. So when price change, we have to what? Look at the current price of the market. So the current price of the market will determine whether the goods will be what? Exchanged or not. So we want to look at market structure. Now, market structure simply refers to the competitive environment of a market, or the degree of competition of producers that operate in a market. And this degree of competition, they are characterized by the number of firms or producers you have in the market, the nature of their product, the activities of their free exit, and so on and so forth. What are the types of market structure? Now, we have three types of markets. There are three types of markets. The first type of market, we call it perfect market. Perfect market. You see, a market is also competition. It's also called what? A competition. Because the structure of the market, I get it now, tells us about the level or the degree of competition of those operating in the market, which are the economic participants. So a market is also the same thing as what? Perfect competition. Now, another type of market based on their structure, we call it monopoly. We call it monopoly. We have monopoly. Then the third type of market is called the monopolistic competition. So we have what we call monopolistic competition. Monopolistic competition. We can also call it a monopolistic what? Market. So basically, these are the three types of market based on what? On their structure. And this structure has to do with what? Their price pattern. Yes, their price what? Pattern. Not only price pattern, but also what? Quantity pattern, or the level of quantity they can what? Produce. So we are going to start with the first one, perfect market. What is a perfect market? What is a perfect market? Now, a perfect market is a market where we have large number of buyers and sellers. A perfect market is a market where we have what? Large number of buyers and what? Sellers that that sells similar products. That sell what? Similar product. Now, in a perfect market, the two parties or economic participants, which are the what? The producers and consumers, either of them do not have the power or the right to influence the price of their what? Of their output. In a perfect market, the producers, neither the producers nor the consumers have the right to what? Influence the price of their what? Output. Now, those producers that operate in a perfect market, they are called what? They are called firms. Are you getting it now? The producers operating in a perfect market, they are called firms. Now, why do we call them firms? It simply means this is because a firm is a what? Is a business unit. A firm is a what? Is a business unit. So when we have firms, it simply means there are more than one business unit that produce what is similar to your own product. So due to that, there will be competition among these what? Firms. So firms do not have right to determine the price of their product. It simply means if they cannot change or determine the price of their product, that means the price of their product so that simply means the price of their product, when all things are equal, is what? Is constant. Is what? Constant. So price is constant. Price is constant. That is to tell us that the profit of firms in a perfect market is not determined by their price, but by their what? Output, or by their quantity. It simply means if a firm wants to raise the profit level in a particular year, it is not determined by the price, because the price is constant when all things are equal. It simply means when the quantity demand and the quantity supply are what? Equal. So price is constant. So when price is constant, what will now determine the level of profit is not the price, but the what? The output or the quantity you can what? Produce. So that means the demand curve for a firm, that because a firm operates in a perfect market, so the demand curve for a perfect market is the demand curve for a what? For a firm. What is the demand curve for a firm? The demand curve for a firm is perfectly what? Elastic. Is perfectly what? Elastic. The demand curve for a firm. So the demand curve of the firm represents the price of the firm. And remember that the price is also the same thing as the what? The average what? Revenue. So this is the demand curve for a firm operating in a perfect what? Market. The demand curve is what? Perfectly elastic, or we can say the demand curve is what? Infinitely what? Elastic. So the coefficient of the elasticity of firms in a perfect market is equal to what? Infinity. So if you have the price axis and we have the quantity axis, to increase your profit, you have to increase your what? Your quantity from Q1 to Q2, from Q2 to what? Q3. So the price does not determine the profit, but what determines profit is the what? Output. Now, another thing we need to understand is that when we have a group of firms that produce a similar product, it becomes an industry. It becomes an what? Industry. So industry is just one. A firm are what? Many. For example, if I mention if I mention few banks in Nigeria, let's assume I mention the first five generation bank, the first five generation bank in Nigeria, which is Fugas, the First Bank, the United Bank for Africa, the GTB Bank, the Access Bank, and the Zenith Bank. Now together they belong to the what? Banking industry, right? Each of these banks is a what? Is a firm. The bank itself is an industry. Now for an industry, the profit of an industry is not determined by the output but the what? But the price. Now, so when we now want to determine the demand curve for an industry, the demand curve for an industry is not the demand curve for a firm. The demand curve for a firm is different from the demand curve of an industry. So for an industry, the demand curve will be what? Downward sloping. Why? Because the industry itself has what we call monopoly what? Power. So the industry itself is a monopoly, but the firm, each firm, that is those components, the components of the industry, which are the firms, they are operating in a perfect market. But in the industry itself is a monopoly. So the demand curve for the industry is not perfectly elastic but downward sloping, which simply means that the price or the average revenue can what? Can change. Are you getting it now? It can actually what? Change. Now let's come back to the perfect market. Now when I say price is constant, I simply means the quantity demand and quantity supply are what? Are equal. You see, if the producers nor the consumers, if neither the producers nor the consumers can influence or determine price, what now do we say determine price in a perfect market? The price of goods and services in a perfect market is determined by what we call the forces of demand and what? Supply. And what's the force of demand and supply? When the force of demand and supply interact to determine price, we call it what? Price mechanism. So price in a what? Perfect market is determined by the what? By the price mechanism. The price mechanism are also called the market forces. They are called the market forces. We can also call them the invisible hands. The invisible hands. So price of goods and services in a perfect market is determined by the force of demand and supply, which is regulated through the activity of the price mechanism, market forces, or what? Invisible hands. So that is what we mean when we talk about perfect market, a perfect competition. The characteristics of this perfect market include what? Large number of buyers and sellers, high free entry and free exits, selling of similar or homogeneous products, no preferential treatment. The price is determined by what? These two variables. Then we can also say in a perfect market, the producers, they are not price makers, they are price takers. They take the price that is determined by what? By these forces. Now, as a firm operating in a perfect market, what is your goal? Your goal is to maximize profit. So to maximize profit, we have to look at the condition of maximizing profit in the short run and in the what? Long run. So and remember that when a firm is at equilibrium, when what? The MC and the what? And the MR, which is the marginal cost and marginal revenue, are equal, right? So let us look at the short run equilibrium of a firm operating in a perfect market. So we want to look at the short run equilibrium. This short run equilibrium, we want to explain the equilibrium of a firm that operates in a perfect market. We want to look at the short run equilibrium of a firm operating in a what? Perfect market. Now the first thing you need to understand is that at equilibrium, either short run or long run, the marginal cost of the firm must be equal to the what? The marginal revenue of the firm, right? And if the marginal cost of the firm and the marginal revenue of the firm are equal, for a perfect market, we need to understand something. And what's that? The producers in perfect market must always have an equilibrium of price and marginal revenue. In a perfect market, the producer's price are always equal to what? Marginal revenue. Remember that I told you that the price of the producer is what? Is constant. Abi? So, if the price is constant, the marginal revenue is also what? Is also constant, right? Now, for a firm operating in a perfect market, the short-run equilibrium and the long-run equilibrium have the same condition. What is the condition? The price and the marginal revenue are always what? Equal. So in case they give you a question whereby they only give you MR, are you getting it now? So let's assume MR was given to you as 3 naira, and you're now looking for, and in that question they didn't give you your TR and they didn't give you your what? Your price. Now they would have given the information in the question such that, now the information in the question would have shown you that the question is for a firm, the information in the question would have shown you that the question is for a firm operating in a what? Perfect market. So whenever you see the MR and you are not seeing TR or you are not seeing price, your MR is the one representing your what? Your price, because in a perfect market the price of a producer was equal to the what? Marginal revenue. We can also prove this mathematically. Let's bring out MR. What is MR? MR is equal to what? A changes in TR over a changes in what? In Q. MR equals a changes in TR. What's TR? Price times what? Quantity over changes in what? Quantity. If this cancel this, the changes cancel the changes, the quantity cancel the quantity. Our MR is equals to what? Is equals to the price. So the equilibrium condition for a firm, the equilibrium condition for a firm operating in a perfect market is that what? The price is equals to the what? Average revenue, right? And the average revenue, which is the price, is equals to the MR. And the MR must be equals to the what? MC. So this is the equilibrium condition of a firm operating in a perfect market. Every firm to arrive at equilibrium must have this condition where price, AR, MR, and MC are what? Equal. And also remember that the MR, the AR, which is the price, represents the demand curve of the what? Of the firm. And the demand curve is what? Perfectly elastic. Perfectly elastic. Now, what is this short run talking about? Remember that when we talk, now note that whenever we talk about short run, we are talking about a production period whereby a firm has what? Some factors of production as what? As fixed, and while some are what? Are variable. So in that case, for market structure, we look at short run in terms of the level of competition. The level of what? Competition. So whenever a firm is still in the short run, whenever a firm is still in the short run, it simply means the type of profit he is going to make will be an abnormal profit. The reason why he is going to make an abnormal profit is because it is a perfect competition, but the competition of the firm has not increased to a certain level. Why? More firms have not what? Have not entered into the what? Industry. Are you getting it now? More firms. Let's assume that in an industry we have just 10 firms. Obviously, these 10 firms, we have, obviously, these 10 firms, we have what? Higher profit. Why? Imagine that, let's say, imagine that out of these 10 firms, 3 firms they left the what? They left the what's it called? They left the industry. It will be left with 7 firms. So if you are left with 7 firms, the supply will reduce. So if the supply reduce due to the what? Interplay between the force of demand and supply, what happens to the price? The price will what? Increase. Note, it is not the firm that is increasing the price. It is because of the what? Low supply. So if supply reduce as a result of what? Reduction in the number of firms, what happens to the price? The price will increase. So if the price increase, profit will increase. But without this condition, the firm cannot increase the price of their product. So at that point, the price must remain what? Constant, given that quantity demand and quantity supply are what? Equal. So whenever a firm is operating in the short run, the equilibrium of the firm must exist where MC is equal to FR at a point in which is making an abnormal what? Profit. So in economics, under market structure, we have 2 types of profit. Now, we have what we call the abnormal profits. We have what we call the abnormal profits. And we have what we call the normal profits. We have what we call the normal profits. You see, this abnormal profit is the excess of the firm's TR, which is total revenue, over the total cost. When abnormal profit occurs, it simply means the total revenue of the firm is equal to what? TC. Now, a condition whereby TR equals to TC. So, at a point where the TR, which is at a point where the total revenue and total cost are equal, then there is a what? There is a break-even point. You see this break-even point? It is the same thing as the normal profit. If you don't call it normal profit, you can call it break-even. We can also call it zero economic profits. Zero economic profits. Another condition for this zero economic profits or break-even is when the average revenue of the firm is equal to the what? Average cost. So when this happens, it simply means the firm total revenue has covered its total cost of production and the opportunity cost of resources used. And also, whenever there is normal profit also means the minimum profit that is necessary to keep a firm going in what? Business. So it is the minimum profit that you need to continue the what? The business. So what is the minimum profit? Your TR is equal to your TC. So it simply means this your TR has covered your cost of production, also your effort and time that you have used, because as a producer, you have to determine the cost for effort and the cost for your what? For your time. So when it covers all this and you are not having an additional or extra profit, then you have make what you call what? Normal profit, which is the same thing as the break-even point of a what? Of a producer. But you see, in the short run, there is always an extra profit that the firm will enjoy. So when the extra profit is added to this normal profit, it becomes what? The abnormal what? Profits. Are you getting it now? So if there is an abnormal profit, that is, the profit is in excess. And excess or abnormal profit can only be made when there is a what? A short run equilibrium of the firm. Why? Because of the level of competition has not yet increased to a what? A certain level. Now that we have explained the short run equilibrium, let us look at the graphical illustration of short run equilibrium. So we want to look at the graph of a firm operating in a perfect market. We want to look at the short run equilibrium graph. Now remember that for every perfect market, this is the condition that must follow. Price equals AR equals MR. So when profit is maximized, MR equals what? MC. Now, what's the difference between the short run and the long run? In the short run, a firm must make either profit or loss. But the type of profit is going to make in the short run is called an abnormal profit. For a firm to make an abnormal profit, then it's operating in the what? In the short run. And I've explained what an abnormal profit is. The additional or extra profit he realized after what? Making normal profit. So in this case, the profit is very, very high due to the what? Low degree of competitiveness in the market what? Environment. And that happens whereby the supply is limited to the what? Demand. So through the activities of this price system, the price can what? Increase, but not determined by the producers or the sellers. So let's look at the graph for the perfect market. So the first thing we have is our price. This is our price. And our price, I said, is our average revenue and our marginal revenue. And I told that at equilibrium, the marginal revenue must be equal to the what? Marginal cost. So to show that it's making profit, we need to draw our average cost. And the minimum point of the average cost must be below the what? The price or the average revenue. So we have our average cost. This is our average cost. So we can call this the short-run average cost. We can call this the short-run average revenue. We can call this the short-run marginal revenue and the short-run what? Marginal cost. So the reason why I put it short-run is to show or to identify so that to show whether it is short-run or long-run. And in fact, without this short-run or long-run, when you see that the minimum point of the average cost is lesser than the price, then it's a what? A short-run period of a firm in a perfect market. The next thing we need to draw is our marginal cost. Remember that our marginal cost is just like a Nike-like shape. It's a Nike-like shape. And when drawing our marginal cost, it has to cut or touch the minimum point of the what? Average cost. So we are going to have something like this. This is our marginal cost, or I'll call it our short-run marginal cost. So these are our short-run marginal cost. So the point where the marginal cost and the marginal revenue they meet is called the equilibrium point. So you can use it to represent the equilibrium point. So this is the equilibrium point of the what? Of the producer. So this is the quantity axis. And this axis is for the price and the average cost of the producer. So this is already the price. Then the minimum point here of the average cost. We use this to represent, we use C to represent this. So this C is not, this C means average cost. This P means the price. From this graph, if we want to determine our total cost, we are going to say this C multiplied by Q, that is this average cost. Let me put A so that we are going to get it that. So this average cost multiplied by quantity is going to give us our what? Our total revenue. Why this price multiplied by quantity? Sorry, this average cost multiplied by quantity is going to give us our total cost. Why this price multiplied by quantity will give us our total revenue. So the portion, so the gap between the price and the minimum point of the average cost is the what? Is the profit portion. So we shade it. So this shaded portion is called abnormal profit. We call this shaded portion abnormal profit. So this is the point where the firm makes abnormal profit. Now, this point is the point of origin, 0. From this, then we now look at where they are connected. This point where it touches. So you can name this point F. Can name this point F. So we have ACPE. So APEF is our profit. ACPEF is our profit. The whole of this part is our total revenue. So our total revenue will now be OPEQ, while our total cost will be OACFQ. So that means to get our profit, we say profit equals TR minus TC. So profit equals OPQ. So this point, let's use to represent QX. You can use QX to represent this, that's the quantity of X. So that will be OP, then EQX. EQ what X minus what's our TC? Our TC is our TC is OACFQX. So we have OACFQX. So when we minus this from this, we are going to get AC, P, then EF. So that is our profit. That's our profit.